The rock star who wore a star on his face to hide a secret that made kids bully him just said the most heartbreaking goodbye to his best friend. October 2025 was a tough month for Paul Stanley. He stood in a funeral home in the Bronx, watching them lower his friend Ace Frehley into the ground. Ace was 74 years old when he died after falling and hitting his head. Paul didn't go to this funeral alone. Gene Simmons and Peter Criss were there too. These three men were the last surviving members of the original Kiss lineup. They stood together crying and remembering their friend who had played guitar like nobody else. Paul and Gene put out a statement calling Ace an essential part of the band during their biggest years. But Paul did something else that made fans around the world tear up. He posted an old photo on social media and told a story. Back in 1974, when Kiss was just getting started, Paul was staying in a hotel. He heard someone playing guitar in the room next door. The music was so good that Paul thought to himself, "I really wish that guy was in our band." Turns out it was Ace playing and Paul didn't even know it. That story shows how talented Ace was and how much these guys meant to each other before all the fame and money changed. Everything. But let's go back to the beginning because Paul Stanley's real story starts way before Kiss and the mansions and the luxury cars. His actual name isn't even Paul Stanley. He was born Stanley Burt Eisen on January 20th, 1952 in New York City. From day one, life was hard for him. He was born with something wrong with his right ear. It didn't grow properly. Doctors call it microtia, but what it meant for little Stanley was that he looked different and couldn't hear well on that side. Kids at school made fun of him constantly. They called him names and pointed at his ear. This was the 1950s and 1960s when people weren't kind about differences. His family didn't have money either. His parents were Jewish and his mom's family had escaped from Nazi Germany years before. They all lived together in a tiny one-bedroom apartment in Manhattan. Can you imagine a whole family sharing one bedroom in New York City? There was no space, no privacy, not much money. They couldn't afford nice things or vacations or eating at restaurants. Young Stanley felt alone and different. He picked up a guitar because music was the one place where nobody made fun of him. When he played guitar, it didn't matter what his ear looked like. That guitar was his ticket out of poverty. In 1973, Stanley met Gene Simmons and they decided to start a band. But this wouldn't be just any band. They wanted to create something nobody had ever seen before. They called it Kiss and came up with a wild idea. They would wear crazy makeup and costumes. They would put on shows with fire and explosions and blood. Stanley became the star child and painted a big star over his right eye. Notice which eye? The same side where his ear didn't grow right. Some people think he chose that star to cover the side of his face that had caused him so much pain growing up. The makeup let him hide and become someone else. Someone confident. Someone powerful. Someone who didn't have to think about that ear anymore. Kiss took off like a rocket. Their first big hit was Rock and Roll All Night, and people went crazy for it. Then came Detroit Rock City and Love Gun. These songs are still famous today, 50 years later. Kiss concerts were insane. Paul and the band would breathe fire, spit blood, fly through the air on wires, and set off fireworks that lit up entire stadiums. They sold over 100 million records around the world. They became one of the biggest rock bands in history. And with that success came a lifestyle that the kid from that one-bedroom apartment could never have imagined. The money started rolling in fast. By the late 1970s, Paul was living a completely different life. He moved out to Los Angeles, where the weather was perfect and the celebrities lived. He bought expensive cars, including multiple Ferraris and custom vehicles. He started wearing designer clothes off stage and ate at the best restaurants in Beverly Hills. The band traveled in private jets to avoid airports and fans. They stayed in five-star hotels and penthouse suites. Paul had gone from sharing a bedroom with his whole family to having hotel suites bigger than his childhood apartment. Room service became normal. Champagne and expensive meals were just part of the day. He wore custom-made stage outfits that cost thousands of dollars each. His platform boots were specially designed and cost more than most people made in a month. Here's the crazy part, though. Paul was doing all of this while only being able to hear properly from one ear. Think about that. A musician who writes songs and performs in front of 50,000 screaming fans, but can only hear from one side. He dealt with this problem until he was 30 years old. That's when he finally got surgery to fix his ear. Imagine hearing in stereo for the first time at age 30. Paul said it completely changed how he experienced music. Suddenly, he could hear everything the way normal people did. Some fans think his music got even better after the surgery because he could finally hear all the sounds properly. During the peak years of Kiss in the late 1970s and 1980s, Paul lived like royalty. The band had their own Boeing 707 airplane painted with the Kiss logo. They would fly from city to city in complete luxury with beds, a full bar, gourmet food, and a staff to take care of everything. When they landed, limousines would be waiting to take them to the best hotels. Each band member had multiple crew members just to handle their personal needs. Paul had people to carry his bags, set up his dressing room exactly how he liked it, bring him food, and handle every little detail of his life. He didn't have to think about anything except performing. In 2014, something huge happened. Kiss got into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. This was a big deal because critics had always said Kiss was just makeup and tricks without real talent. Some people called them a joke. But getting into the Hall of Fame meant they were being recognized as serious musicians who mattered. Paul showed up to the ceremony in an expensive designer suit, arriving in a luxury car. He stood on that stage with tears in his eyes. This wasn't just about being famous. It was about getting respect. Now let's talk about Paul's life outside of Kiss, because this is where things get really interesting. His first marriage was to a woman named Pamela Bowen. They had a son together named Evan Shane. But the marriage fell apart. Being a rock star who travels all the time and lives a crazy lifestyle isn't great for relationships. Paul has admitted he struggled during those years. He was partying, traveling constantly, and living in a way that made it impossible to be a good husband. The divorce hurt him badly and cost him money in the settlement. Then in 2005, everything changed. Paul married Erin Sutton on November 19th. This marriage was different. Erin became his partner in building a real life beyond the partying and chaos. They had 3 kids together. Colin Michael is 18 now, Sarah Brianna is 16, Emily Grace is 13. Paul also stayed close to Evan Shane from his first marriage, who is now 31. So that's 4 kids total. When Paul settled down with Erin, his lifestyle changed, but it was still incredibly luxurious. They live in Beverly Hills in an absolutely stunning home. This isn't just any house. It's a 9,000 square foot Tuscan-style estate on Mulholland Drive, one of the most exclusive streets in Los Angeles. The house sits on top of a hill with views of the entire city. It was custom built for Paul in 1996, designed exactly to his specifications. The property has multiple bedrooms, each one bigger than most people's entire apartments. There are several bathrooms with marble and luxury fixtures. The kitchen is massive with top-of-the-line appliances that cost more than a car. There's a home theater where the family watches movies on a huge screen with professional sound systems. The house has a gym where Paul works out to stay in shape. Outside, there's a beautiful pool and spa where the family relaxes. The landscaping is perfect with palm trees and gardens maintained by a professional crew. The property is gated and private with security systems to keep everyone safe. That house alone is worth somewhere between $10 and $20 million in today's crazy Los Angeles real estate market. The property taxes on it are probably around $200,000 per year, which is more than most people make in a year. But for Paul, that's just a small expense. Paul's daily life now is a mix of family time and luxury. He wakes up in his mansion and has breakfast prepared in his gourmet kitchen. His kids go to exclusive private schools that cost $50,000 per year or more per child. That means he's spending over $150,000 a year just on school for his 3 younger kids. They have tutors and music lessons and sports coaches. The family takes vacations to exotic places, staying in 5-star resorts or renting private villas. They've traveled to Europe, the Caribbean, Hawaii, and other luxury destinations. When they fly, they often use private jets to avoid the hassle of commercial airports. A private jet flight from Los Angeles to New York costs around $40,000 one way, but when you're worth $200 million, that's like pocket change. Paul drives luxury cars. He's owned multiple high-end vehicles over the years, including Mercedes, BMWs, and custom cars. His garage at the Beverly Hills mansion probably has several cars worth hundreds of thousands of dollars combined. Erin also has her own luxury vehicles. The family doesn't think twice about spending money on nice things because they have so much of it. But Paul isn't just sitting around spending money. He stays busy with projects he loves. He still performs with his Soul Station band, doing shows at intimate venues around the country. For these performances, he flies to the city, stays in luxury hotels, and performs for audiences who pay good money to see him. Paul also works on his art in a home studio, creating paintings that sell for tens of thousands of dollars each. His artwork has been shown in galleries in major cities. Collectors who buy his paintings are often wealthy people who see his art as an investment. Paul also has help running his life. He has a business manager who handles his finances and investments. He has lawyers who deal with contracts and legal issues. He has accountants who make sure his taxes are filed correctly. He probably has household staff who help maintain that massive Beverly Hills property. Cleaning a 9,000 square foot house isn't something you do yourself. There are likely housekeepers, gardeners, and maintenance people who work for the family. The family eats incredibly well too. They can afford to buy organic food, shop at the best grocery stores, and eat at expensive restaurants whenever they want. A nice dinner out for the family of 5 probably costs $500 to $1,000, but they don't worry about it. Paul has been spotted at exclusive Los Angeles restaurants where celebrities go to see and be seen. Places where a single meal costs more than most people spend on groceries in a week. After 50 years, Kiss finally ended in 2023. Their last tour was massive. Fans packed stadiums knowing this was the final chance to see them. Paul was 71 years old but still performing with incredible energy. The tour made millions of dollars. Each show brought in huge amounts of money from ticket sales, merchandise, and sponsorships. Then in April 2024, Paul and Jean made a shocking business decision. They sold everything related to Kiss to a Swedish company called Pop House for $300 million. Let that sink in. $300 million for the songs, the name, the makeup designs, the images, everything. The company that bought it creates digital concerts like the ABBA hologram shows, so we might see digital versions of Kiss performing in the future. Paul's share of that sale was massive, probably around $100 million or more after splitting it with Jean and paying any other stakeholders. That's life-changing money even for someone who was already rich. With that sale money, Paul became even more secure financially. He can afford anything he wants for the rest of his life. He could buy another mansion, more cars, take more vacations, and never run out of money. His kids' futures are set. They'll inherit a fortune when he's gone. But Paul didn't just retire after Kiss ended and count his money. Back in 2015, he had started a side project called Paul Stanley's Soul Station. This band plays soul music from the 1960s and 1970s. Songs by The Temptations and Smokey Robinson and other Motown legends. Paul performs these shows in small venues with no makeup, no fire, no explosions, just pure music. He released an album with them in 2021. These shows are more intimate affairs, often at theaters or small clubs that hold a few hundred to a couple thousand people. Tickets sell out fast because fans want to see this different side of Paul. Paul also did other things most people don't know about. In 1999, he starred in The Phantom of the Opera in Toronto. That takes guts for a rock star to try musical theater. He's also a painter who sells his artwork for tens of thousands of dollars per piece. His paintings hang in galleries and collectors fight to buy them. Some of his pieces have sold for $50,000 or more. He wrote a book called Face the Music where he opened up about everything in his life, the good and the bad. The book became a bestseller and earned him good money from sales and publicity tours. So how much is Paul Stanley worth today? Experts estimate his net worth at $200 million. That money comes from lots of places. The Kiss sale brought in a huge chunk, but he also gets paid every single time a Kiss song plays anywhere in the world. On the radio, in movies, on TV shows, in commercials, on Spotify, everywhere. Those royalties add up to millions every year. Some estimates say he probably makes $5 to $10 million per year just from royalties and passive income. That's without doing any work at all. His art sales bring in money. Soul Station concerts make money. He has investments in stocks, real estate, and other ventures that grow his wealth. Paul was smart with his money, unlike many rock stars from his era. While others burned through fortunes on drugs and bad choices, Paul invested wisely. He hired good financial advisors who helped him grow his wealth instead of spending it all. He made sure his family would be set for life. His kids and grandkids will never struggle with money the way he did as a child in that tiny apartment. That's probably one of his proudest achievements, breaking the cycle of poverty that his family experienced when he was young. The lifestyle Paul lives now is comfortable, but not as wild as it was during the peak Kiss years. He's not partying every night or living in hotels. He's settled into a routine with his family. He wakes up in his mansion, spends time with his kids, works on his art or music projects, and enjoys the fruits of 50 years of hard work. His kids are growing up in a world of privilege that Paul never knew. They go to the best schools, have opportunities he never had, and don't have to worry about money. But Paul has said he tries to teach them the value of hard work and not to take things for granted. Looking at Paul Stanley today at 73 years old, you see someone who has lived an amazing life. He started as a kid who got bullied for looking different in a tiny apartment with no money. He became a rock god who sold out stadiums worldwide and lived like a king. He struggled through a failed marriage. He found true love and became a devoted father. He built a rock empire and sold it for a fortune. The funeral for Ace Frehley showed that Paul never forgot where he came from. Despite any fights they had over the years, Paul showed up when it mattered. He honored his friend with love and respect. Paul's story teaches us that you can overcome anything. You can come from nothing and build something incredible. From that bullied kid with the bad ear to the rock legend worth $200 million living in a Beverly Hills mansion with a loving family, Paul Stanley proved that dreams can come true if you work hard and stay true to yourself.